Good afternoon. It's Thursday, October 27th. I'm Laura Kornfield, and this is IBA News, broadcasting live from Jerusalem. The city of Jerusalem is set to approve new construction projects in areas located beyond the Green Line, including 181 housing units in the neighborhood of Gilo. The new projects will reportedly be given the green light by the capital's subcommittee for building permits next week. The Gilo housing units will be part of residential buildings that will be constructed by a private contractor. According to media reports, the government had delayed implementation of the plans until now due to American pressure. Sources said that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu postponed the plans following the recent signing of the defense aid package given by the Obama administration. Washington has repeatedly condemned Israeli construction in Jerusalem, particularly in Gilo. In July, the State Department described plans to build in the southern Jerusalem neighborhood as corrosive to peace. The IDF detained two 8-year-old Palestinian children yesterday after they were found carrying knives outside the settlement of Migdal Oz in Gush Etzion. During an initial investigation, the children admitted they were sent with knives to commit a terror attack. Meanwhile, the Justice Ministry announced that no charges will be pressed against two security guards who shot dead a Palestinian woman brandishing a knife and her brother, who was also carrying knives, in April at the Kalandia checkpoint. Prosecutors determined that the two guards acted lawfully in the face of what they considered a threat, closing the case against one of them for lack of evidence and another on account of blamelessness. It's been released for publication that a major terror attack has been thwarted in Jerusalem. 3 weeks ago, police arrested Mohammed Abbasi, a resident of the capital's Ras Al Amud neighborhood, on suspicion that he planned to carry out a terror attack inside Israel. According to an investigation, Abbasi plotted to open fire against security forces and civilians in East Jerusalem and attempted to purchase weapons several times in order to do so. The suspect is a staunch supporter of the Hamas terror group and was involved in throwing firebombs and stones at Israeli vehicles in East Jerusalem. Abbasi posted several posts on Facebook supporting Hamas and inciting terror against Israelis. Reserve Lieutenant Colonel Paws was indicted today for forgery and fraud. The charge sheet accuses Paws of fabricating a document detailing a plot to damage then-Chief of Staff Gabi Ashkenazi while promoting Major General Yoav Gallant, who was then a candidate for the top military job. Prosecutors argue that with this forgery, Paws brought about a temporary freeze of the process to replace the Chief of Staff. Today's indictment comes some 6 years after the document, which later became known as the Paws affair, was first published. Israel's ambassador to UNESCO, Carmel Shammah-Cohen, has been recalled home for consultations in a gesture of protest at UNESCO's World Heritage Committee, which yesterday adopted another resolution disregarding Jewish ties to Jerusalem. The Prime Minister described the loss as a significant result for Israel because the 8 abstentions and 2 no votes represent an improvement for the Jewish state. Even though the composition of the forum this year is more problematic from Israel's perspective than it was last year, he said Israel got a better result. Simultaneously, Education Minister Naftali Bennett announced that in light of the new resolution, his decision to suspend Israel's professional ties with the UN cultural body stands. Hoping to avoid future such incidents, Knesset Speaker Yuri Edelstein yesterday wrote to the Vatican to enlist its support. Describing UNESCO's vote as an assault on history and deeply offensive to both Christianity and Judaism, he called for the international community to adopt a new resolution that reaffirms Jerusalem as a holy city for all monotheistic religions, from which the words of God was first promulgated to humanity by our prophets. This came as Pope Francis gave a public address in the Vatican in which he called Israel a land promised by God to the people of Israel. Adding to the Prime Minister's worries over the Western Wall, the High Court has given the government 3 weeks to explain why it has not implemented its January decision to create an egalitarian prayer plaza at the Western Wall. The deadline comes in response to a petition by the Reform and conservative movements, together with several Israeli NGOs, demanding the implementation of the decision or the creation of a mixed-sex prayer area at the existing plaza. This comes as the President, Prime Minister, Knesset Speaker, and Diaspora Affairs Minister all received some 20,000 emails from Reform and conservative Jews from around the world in recent weeks, urging them to implement the move. Since that decision, the temporary deck under Robinson's Arch has been used intermittently for Orthodox prayer services, including a pop-up mechitza, dividing wall, angering many progressive Jews. The saga surrounding the new public broadcasting corporation, Kan, which is slated to replace the Israel Broadcast Authority next year, continues. It appears that Prime Minister Netanyahu, who is also the Minister of Communications, will on Sunday present coalition party leaders with his proposal to abort the new corporation. He is expected to recommend revising and reassessing the planned reform at the IBA instead, with the aim of keeping it in place. Yesterday, Khan said it will be ready to begin operations on the 1st of January 2017. The coalition itself approved the Knesset's 2014 reform, shutting the IBA in favor of the new body. It remains unclear how certain party leaders, such as Jewish homehead Naftali Bennett and Shas leader Aryeh Deri, will vote when the issue comes up for debate next week. U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump vowed to make America and Israel safe again. He made the promise in a taped message to a crowd of supporters in Jerusalem last night. IBA's Ari O'Sullivan has that story.
It wasn't clear last night if this was a rally of Israeli supporters of Trump or of Trump for Israel and Jerusalem. But that's a good description of the gathering in the Old City. Some 250 Trump supporters, outfitted in campaign hats and T-shirts, showed up with dozens of media crews to cover the event.
He's not the typical politician that gets nothing done. If you look at his background, his business is phenomenal. The business is all over the world. He also knows that we're in war with radical Islam. He's not afraid to say it. He understands the situation in Israel, and he'll let Israel run itself, unlike Hillary Clinton.
For Trump supporters, the rally coincides with the anti-Israel resolutions passed by UNESCO negating Israel's ties to Jerusalem.
Under a Trump administration, the United States will recognize Jerusalem as the eternal capital of the State of Israel, and the United States will move its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Warming up the crowd was none other than Shuli Natan singing the iconic Jerusalem of Gold. But what brought the dozens of TV crews and journalists was the message Trump taped especially for the event.
I love Israel and honor and respect the Jewish faith and tradition. And it's important that we have a president who feels the same way. For me, respect and reverence for Judaism is personal. My daughter Ivanka and my son-in-law Jared are raising their children in the Jewish faith, always reminding me the important values and lessons we learn about leadership, resolve, and families in Jewish tradition. My administration will stand side by side with the Jewish people and Israel's leaders to continue strengthening the bridges that connect not only Jewish Americans and Israelis, but also all Americans and Israelis. Together, we will stand up to the enemies like Iran, bent on destroying Israel and her people. Together, we will make America and Israel safe again.
There are some 300,000 American citizens living in Israel. It's not clear how many will cast a ballot in these elections.
We're about 2 weeks before the election, and we need to make it clear that there's a whole bunch of Americans here living abroad 6,000 miles away who still express their support for Donald Trump.
But with the Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton expanding her lead in the polls, it was likely worth it for the Trump campaign to deliver their message to these potential voters that he is the best candidate for Israel. Ari O'Sullivan for IBA News.
For her part, Hillary Clinton blasted Trump for his fair-weather friendship with Israel.
And when asked specifically about Israel, he said, and I quote again, he would love to be neutral. Now, we can't have a president who says he's neutral on Monday, pro-Israel on Tuesday, and who knows what on Wednesday, because in his mind, everything is negotiable. I have a different view. We stand with our allies. We stand with those who will help us defeat terrorism.
The KGB ran spies among Knesset members and senior military and intelligence officers. This according to an explosive investigation by journalist Ronen Bergman, the first part of which will be published in tomorrow's Yediot Achronot Hebrew newspaper. The accused includes Secretary General of the Mapam and Knesset Foreign and Defense Committee member Elazar Granot, alongside two other Knesset members, an IDF Major General, and civilians exposed to sensitive information. The report is based on a stash of secret KGB documents copied by hand by archivist Vasily Matrokin and transferred to British intelligence when he defected to the West in 1992. The documents were transferred to the Churchill Archive Center in Cambridge, and Bergman was given special access on conditions of confidentiality. This comes a month after Israel television reported that Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas was a KGB agent in Damascus in the 1980s named Krotov, or Mole, basing its claims on a document from the same archive. Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat laid the cornerstone last night of Jerusalem's new business district, together with Transport Minister Yisrael Katz and Jerusalem Affairs Minister Ze'ev Elkin. The 10 billion shekel project at the entrance of the city will include 24 buildings, including 14 skyscrapers of at least 24 floors each, and 9 buildings with 36 floors apiece. The project will also include the expansion of the light rail and the integration of the high-speed connection to Tel Aviv. Mayor Barkat said the initiative should create tens of thousands of jobs over a business space 5 times larger than the Israeli towers. The International Convention Center will also be refurbished, becoming the largest in the Middle East. The gravestone of the late President Shimon Peres will be unveiled tomorrow, 30 days after a state funeral. The epitaph includes the verse from Isaiah prophesying that nations shall beat their swords into plowshares and that nation shall not lift the sword against nation. It will also include a verse from Chaim Nachman Bialik's poem, After My Death, and a quote from David Ben-Gurion. Peres is described on the gravestone as a statesman, lover of literature, poetry, and art, Nobel Prize winner, a man of vision and action, as well as one of the founding fathers of the state he served all his life. The ceremony on Mount Herzl will be attended by the President and Prime Minister, as well as friends and relatives of the late statesman. If you enjoy dancing, the next week you'll get a chance to see the stunning dance troupe Bela Brazil in their local debut at the Tel Aviv Opera House as the company takes the stage Wednesday through Saturday. The dance company was founded by 3 friends from the rundown neighborhoods of Uberlandia in the center of Brazil and has continued to enchant audiences and critics around the world. Time Out London said that for everybody who's ever wanted to fly to Brazil but hasn't yet had the chance to, this is the closest experience that comes to it. 14 dancers, accompanied by a live musical performance, are getting ready to sweep the crowd at the Tel Aviv Opera House off their feet. That's the Bela Brazil Dance Company, running from the 2nd to the 5th of November. Daylight saving time will end over Saturday night as clocks wind back for winter. At 2 o'clock in the morning of this coming Sunday, the 30th of October, clocks will jump back an hour, giving everyone in Israel an extra hour sleep. In local money matters, shares were mixed in end-of-week trading on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, while the shekel was mixed in foreign currency trading. Here are the numbers. The meteorologist promised, and as predicted, rain started pouring this afternoon in several northern areas of the country, including the Jezreel Valley, Nazareth, and communities in the Carmel region and along the northern coast. Residents were reportedly delighted by the wet weather after a summer of intense heat. Light rain showers are expected to continue tonight and tomorrow morning. Residents in the center of the country are expected to feel a little drizzle as well. Here are the highs and lows. That's all for this newscast. Please, before closing this, take note that on Monday, the 31st of October, IBA English News will be broadcast at 6 p.m. and not at our regular time of 4 o'clock due to the opening of the Knesset's winter session. Live coverage of the event will begin at 3:45 on this channel, followed by English News at 6. Elin Aslin-Levy will be back here on Sunday for more breaking news from Israel. Until then, I'm Laura Cornfield, wishing you a great weekend, and shalom from Jerusalem.